Hello there.
You know what I've come for. This is the way.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Hello and welcome back to the Pod Awakens, a Star Wars fan podcast. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and a little bit of a catch-up today. I'll kind of run through what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the 6 episodes of Tales of the Jedi. We're going to talk about the news that broke of Damon Lindelof working on a Star Wars film, and when it comes to Andor, which I would love to do weekly breakdowns of, I just haven't had the time nor the resources to do so right now. But the plan is, because of how long it is, 12 episodes is a lot. And with me already missing like 8, right? What we're going to do is I'm going to do a full recap of Andor after the season is completed. So we will talk about all 12 episodes as one at the end of the season and think about what we think could happen in season 2, how this can tie in more with or set up Rogue One, and going forward from there. So really looking forward to talking Andor, because I'll just say here, I've really enjoyed it. So I'll say that much without us talking too much about it. But we're going to talk Tales of the Jedi, which was a series of shorts produced by Dave Filoni, who, as all of you may know, right, has done The Mandalorian, has done the Clone Wars. He had part of Bad Batch that he worked on, but very much similar animation style to the Clone Wars and the newest Bad Batch animation styles. So it looks beautiful, but it's 6 shorts telling about the kind of 2 concurrent, not really concurrent, I guess, but they're displayed concurrently, stories of Ahsoka and Count Dooku. And so we're going to talk about those and the way that they were maybe presented, because they are in an interesting order, I would say. Then after that, we'll like I said, we'll talk about the Deadline and Hollywood Reporter report about Damon Lindelof jumping into Star Wars and all the people that may be working with him, and a potential release date that Jeff Snyder was talking about on his podcast. He used to work for Variety, I believe. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff to kind of catch up on. But what we're going to start with, of course, is episode 1 of Tales of the Jedi: Life and Death, directed by Nathaniel Villanueva, written by Dave Filoni, and it, of course, premiered October 26, 2022 on Disney+. So the synopsis, just a brief synopsis here. Ahsoka Tano's birth is seen along with her first hunting trip with her mother, Pav-ti. So this one was, I think, very interesting, right? Because you have, well, one, the modern trend of seeing characters as babies, which, is funny. But yeah, we got baby Ahsoka in this one, so that was cute to see. I was actually, I think some people are not a fan of this one. It is a little slower paced, but I think it tells a great story of not just Ahsoka and learning that she has Force abilities, and that's potentially why she gets taken away from her family so young and becomes a Jedi, but that it really sheds some light on her family. And I think at times you almost forget it's Ahsoka that you're watching. At least I did. You're just thinking like, wow, this is such a cute baby. Her parents really care about her. Apparently, I guess it's this tradition in her city, or her planet, village, that when you're born, a year later, when they turn 1 year old, they go on a hunt with their mother. I'm assuming that is something historical because, and not just like, I've seen someone be like, well, why is she taking her baby hunting at 1 year old? The way that, like, the older lady in the town says, has it been a year already, as she's walking out to go hunt, I feel like it's some sort of thing that they usually do. Now, I don't know what the purpose of that would be, right? Because it does look pretty darn dangerous, but it does seem like it's some sort of tradition that the locals do. I'm not sure if it's just for mother-daughter relationships, or if it's supposed to be for, if it was a mother-son or a father-son, like how they would do that. But there's definitely some sort of tradition, it seems. So her mom, Pav-ti, takes Ahsoka into the woods, I guess you would say, and is talking to her, having a good time. They're hunting these like deer-like creatures. I forget what they called them, but they are hunting the deer-like creatures. I was actually pretty sad to see this deer die. I'm a big fan of deer, and I don't like seeing harm to animals. So it was tough for me to see this deer get taken out. But they're gonna collect it so they can go eat. I understand that. And then we get this tiger-esque creature who is coming up, and Pav-ti has to fight off the tiger, and luckily when it does take Ahsoka, it just takes her, it doesn't eat her. But we get this great scene when Ahsoka is captured by the tiger, and she just kind of like gives him a little boop on the nose, gives him a little touch on the nose, and it makes, like, she calms down the tiger pretty effortlessly with the Force. And when her village is scrambling to find her, here she comes riding on the tiger's back, and he bows his head to let her down. And it was just like, okay, they knew they had something, right? The older woman in the village is like, she's Jedi, right? Which I think is funny how, like, when we talk about people in the rest of the universe, right, of the Star Wars galaxies, what their idea is of Jedi, right? Because Ahsoka isn't Jedi right now. She just used the Force. So I'm not sure if they don't know that you can just be Force sensitive and not a Jedi, or if it's just like, I don't know. I think it's funny when you see this with a few people in a few different shows and movies and books, right? When people display Force abilities, they're just like, oh, you're a Jedi. So I thought that was pretty interesting, that the older woman's mind immediately went to Jedi. So I just want to pull up the Wikipedia of it to see if we have character names here. But yes, this is the episode that they decided to present in Celebration Anaheim in May of 2022. They played this full episode. And what I really like about this series, before we move on to like the next one, is that they called it shorts, but these are actually anywhere from like 15 to 18 minutes, which is, I guess, shorter than a normal TV episode. But if you go 18 minutes for some of these, you're really like 4 minutes off of a Clone Wars episode of 22 minutes. So that was pretty interesting. The older lady is named Gantika. That's right. Okay. I was going to say, the Wikipedia pages for this are very thin. But that leads us to our second episode, and where I think... So if you're not familiar with the layout of this, if you're, I don't know, for some reason listening to this before you watch any, which I don't think many people would do, but it's 3 episodes of Ahsoka, 3 episodes of Count Dooku, and I assumed that, okay, we'd get like 3 of Count Dooku first, 3 of Ahsoka, or 3 Ahsoka when it started off with Life and Death, and then 3 Count Dooku. But the way that they actually put this in here was 1 Ahsoka, 3 Count Dooku, 2 Ahsoka. So it's very curious to see why they would do that, because and then I started thinking, well, maybe it's by time, but this episode we're about to talk about with the young Qui-Gon was definitely, like, Qui-Gon was not that young at the time that Ahsoka was born. So, you know, Ahsoka's what, like 10 or 12? I think 12 when we get to So you go 10 years back for episode 1, she'd be 2, and then you'd have to keep going further back for a young Qui-Gon. So it didn't make any sense. So some people thought it was like a thematic thing, actually, but I haven't really been able to pick up on what type of theme that would actually be to do it this way. But maybe they just put... Maybe they really thought Life and Death was a really strong one, and they put that one first. And then they're like, okay, now we'll go to Dooku, and then we'll go to the rest of Ahsoka uninterrupted. And I think maybe where it could come from is that the rest of the episodes really do deal with, like, Jedi and Sith things, while the first one doesn't, and maybe that's why they put it first, is, okay, look, this is just a story about a girl finding out she has the Force at 1 year old, and that could be what they were thinking. Okay, so what we have here is episode 2 of it, Justice, directed by Saul Ruiz, written by Dave Filoni. It also premiered October 26, 2022, and the official description from the Disney Plus website was 2 Jedi are dispatched to resolve a hostage situation on a distant planet. So this is where, at this point, Dooku is still part of the Jedi Order, and his Padawan is Qui-Gon Jinn, and they arrive on a planet, and they're here to resolve some sort of content. But when they land and they're like walking through this village, you have lots of the residents of the village and the planet slamming doors, closing their windows. It's almost like if you watched Obi-Wan, what, in that 3rd episode when Darth Vader is walking through the village and looking for Obi-Wan, and everybody's like scattering to get out of his way and to hide. It almost felt that way, which I thought was a pretty interesting, I guess, parallel. Probably unintentionally parallel, but a parallel nonetheless, to see how that would be for Jedi. And you're like, okay, why aren't the Jedi being welcomed here? And we kind of get this, you know, we kind of get throughout this whole Dooku arc where people are like, you know, Jedi are just lapdogs of the Republic. They just do what they're told. And we know that that's not really true, or it shouldn't be true, and part of the reason why the prequels show the downfall of the Jedi is because it was kind of true after all, but they don't trust them if they don't trust their government, right? And what we learn is that the senator, who is the center of this planet, has kind of turned his back on his people and have been really not doing a good job at his job, like really hurting them with like financially, hurting them with what they're able to produce, and they're starving. They're not like a very well kept people at this time, and so they kidnapped the senator's son, who what we'll learn is that the senator's son had no idea any of this stuff was going on at his home planet. And he had grown up in Coruscant and the planet capital. So he had no idea. But what happens here is that they don't really trust the Jedi at this time because they think, okay, you're just going to take the senator's side. And they kind of have this hostility to them. Well, if there's anything you know about Dooku is he's not really one to care about the Republic, as we'll see later on when he becomes a separatist. But they find a cantina, they enter, they ask questions, they take the Jedi to where they have been kidnapping the son of the senator. The senator was named Dagonet. And all of the villagers are in on this, so Dooku realizes that, and they admit to the crime of taking the son, and that it has enriched the Senator Dagonet, but has not enriched his planet or his people. Now, this creates like this standoff that as they're learning all of this information with the son of the senator and his like bodyguards, his army, are going to come to, they found it, right? They're going to come to where they're holding his son, and he is Dooku and Qui-Gon are going to go out there and try to talk this down a bit. And Dooku even says, like, you know, your people are angry at you for like a good reason. And the senator is going to kind of take exception to that, I guess. And they're going to start shooting. But what I thought was interesting too is that Dooku in these 3 episodes is really shown to like pull out that lightsaber pretty quick. You can kind of see why he falls to the dark side and the corruption of the dark side so quickly, or I guess over time, is because he was always kind of gung-ho to just whip out that lightsaber and start threatening people like he does to the senator here. And when the senator is having this fight and everything, and he's, you know, blocking blaster bolts, Dooku is going to force choke the senator. And he's even going to push his apprentice Qui-Gon out of the way when Qui-Gon is starting to say, hey, like, stop doing that. Qui-Gon's going to go into the barn, he's going to free the son, and he pretty much says, like, go out there and save your dad. Like, you're the only one that can do this right now. You're the only one that can stop this from getting worse. And yes, the son does help. Dooku does release the hold of the force choke. And the son says, hey, Dad, you've been a really bad senator. And Dooku knows he was wrong here. He's going to tell Qui-Gon that he acted wiser than him on that day, and that he'll be a great Jedi. And at the village, while the father and son are preparing to leave, the son is going to promise to the village that he is going to help his people. His people being the senator and the senator's son's people of the planet that they're on, which I don't think it said what planet they were on. Yeah. No info we have on it. But yeah, so that was a great... I really enjoyed that episode a lot because loved seeing a young Qui-Gon Jinn, loved seeing a young Dooku who's still part of the Jedi Order. And we'll talk about how this kind of matches up with the book Dooku Lost, Dooku Jedi Lost, which I haven't read yet, but it is apparently a great audio drama on Audible. So I have used my monthly credit for that, so I'll be listening to that soon. But what I've been able to read from the writer of that, who really enjoyed these Dooku episodes as well, is that they're a way that this stuff all still works together pretty well, so fear not. Okay, episode 3 was called Choices, and it was directed by Charles Murray and written by Charles Murray and Élan Murray. So this timeline here says that this took place around 68 years before Battle of Yavin and 42 years before the Battle of Yavin. I'm not sure how they determined that. But yeah, that is pretty interesting here. Oh, they're talking about how they did all the math here on the Wikipedia for that. So that's interesting. So if you're interested in that, go to the Choices Wikipedia page, and they tell you how they determined when it takes place between these years due to other references and other material and all that stuff. But pretty interesting the way they determine that. Okay, so at this point here, the official description is Jedi Knights investigate the mysterious death of one of their own. So, yes, they go to a planet here where they are going to... It's Mace and Dooku team up. I'm assuming Qui-Gon is already graduated at this point. And what we have here is Qui-Gon going to... not Qui-Gon, sorry, Dooku and Mace Windu go into this planet, and they're looking for a missing Jedi at this point, I believe. I don't think they know that she is dead at this point. But they find out that she was killed, and that she was killed by these security guards for another senator. And this is another instance where they're kind of... They didn't like the way that the senator was profiting here as well. And they figured that the Jedi would be complicit in it because the Jedi are the lapdogs of the Republic. So another instance here where they are kind of presenting this as, you know, the people of the Republic don't really understand what the Jedi do, right? They're well respected in most situations, but what you also have is this mentality that I've been talking about of where they just think they don't care, they'll do that, they're corrupt as well, right? And I guess you could say we kind of figure out that they sort of are corrupt as well as we watch the prequels, like I mentioned earlier. But at this point, Count Dooku really takes offense to this, I feel. And Mace does, I guess, as well. I don't know. Mace is hard to read at times. He very much is a by-the-book type of Jedi. And you get this instance where Mace, at the end of this thing, is going to say, hey, I told the council like everything you did, but guess what? I'm the one that gets promoted in this instance, right? He's the one that's going to use this as a promotion, even though Count Dooku's the one that really figured all this stuff out and made everything work. But again, he was a little quick on the draw with his lightsaber. So I don't think Count Dooku would have been good on the Jedi Council, I'll say. But I don't know. Mace is kind of not a great Jedi Council master as well. And I'm not even somebody that dislikes Mace Windu like I've seen a lot of people doing. But look, he's the one that's going to really draw the line in the sand when it comes to Anakin. He's the one that's really going to make some bad moves in the prequel. And with the way that Dooku is easily corrupted or corrupted over time to the dark side, I don't think he would have been a great Jedi Master either. I would probably say the same thing with Anakin. You know, when people say, like, okay, just give Anakin the title of Master and everything would be better, I'm not so sure. Like, if he could be easily manipulated like that, he would have had to have been a Master way earlier before he started having a lot of the influence from Palpatine, but we know Palpatine had been influencing for a while. And I really wonder with this next episode that we're going to talk about, how long Count Dooku was under the influence of Palpatine. And maybe that's in Dooku Jedi Lost, and I'll be able to report back on that at another time. But yes, it is something that is a very, well, interesting to me, I guess you'd say. Okay, well, there wasn't much to talk about with that one, but they're able to find out who killed her, and they take care of that. It was another good episode. I really enjoyed the Dooku stuff. The third episode is The Sith Lord, directed by Saul Ruiz, written by Dave Filoni, and it aired October 26th of 2022 as well. And this is probably the best one of the bunch. This is one I really, really enjoyed. And they're saying this takes place, 32 years before the Battle of Yavin. This takes place like right after. And in between the Phantom Menace. Like this is in the thick of it here. And the official description is just a Jedi Master makes a troubling discovery. And that troubling discovery, I guess they're talking about Yaddle at this point. But yeah, Yaddle makes this discovery of, Dooku has been training under a Sith Lord. Like, breaks her heart here. But yes, Qui-Gon does inform Dooku of a possible Sith presence on Tatooine. So part of this is taking place during the Phantom Menace, which is awesome. And it's taking place like right after Qui-Gon walks out of that meeting with the Jedi Council where he's talking about what he found on Tatooine with Darth Maul and fighting Darth Maul. And what's interesting is that Dooku already kind of knows this, right? He is training under Darth Sidious or Palpatine as well here. But then it kind of jumps time a little bit to when Qui-Gon's death is, and like Yaddle was getting ready to go to Naboo or something. And this is where she's going to follow Dooku to him reporting back to Darth Sidious, and Dooku is tasked then with killing a Jedi Master Yaddle. Now, Yaddle is just signed off of the council, so this whole episode works really well of telling us why she's in the council for episode 1, but for episode 2, the Attack of the Clones, she's not in it. It's okay, well, this happened in between, because that was just something that was interesting. I'm assuming when they originally did that stuff, it was like, okay, some of these people got phased out, or they, retired, or got shifted out of the council. I don't know. But I like that Dave used this as a reason of, okay, let's explain what happened to Yaddle here. And she does die here in this issue. Brutally, she gets the door slammed on her. But she's going to survive that enough, but she's still, she's going to die immediately after. So how does this work, right? People, I think, are taking this, and this might be the way Dave wrote it, I don't know, is that Dooku was still a Jedi at this time. But from other ancillary materials, we'll learn that Dooku left the Jedi Order about 10 years before the Phantom Menace, and that he would still occasionally go into the Jedi Temple, and people would still call him Master as a sign of respect, because he was respected for being a Jedi. They had no idea the reason he left, and that he was falling to the dark side. We even learned that in Attack of the Clones when, I forget who it is, mentions Dooku falling to the dark side, but Mace was like, he's a former Jedi. Dooku wouldn't go this far. He wouldn't do these things, right? Turns out he would. And it really makes me wonder what they think happened to Yaddle at this time. She did resign, but I'm assuming they'll find out she died, but they don't know who killed her. I don't know. That'll be interesting. I'm not sure if we'll ever get that expanded on. But, Dooku at this point feels he's just gone too far. He can't really turn back. He can't really not fulfill what he's supposed to do. So he takes that step, and he's going to kill Yaddle at Darth Sidious' urging. Very parallel to Palpatine urging Anakin to kill Count Dooku. In episode 3, I'm sure he was having some sort of flashback to that while he's about to get his head chopped off, because he's like, oh geez, I really fell for this guy's plans, and he really doesn't care about me at all. All of this is set up just to get people helping him while Anakin's preparing to take over, really, is kind of what these apprentices are. Once he meets Anakin, he's like, okay, I can lose Maul. I can lose Dooku. I just really want that kid. It's like when a football team is tanking for the draft or something. They're like, okay, yeah, it's our star players. Last year, he's been here forever, but we're about to get this great quarterback in the draft. That's how it kind of feels with Palpatine. But yes, so another great scene here is him going into the Jedi archives and removing Kamino. And we finally get to see that happen, that we learn about in Attack of the Clones, is that, when Obi-Wan's looking for the planet Kamino, it's been removed from the archives. We get to see that happen here, because Dooku is setting all this stuff up with the clone army. Which is still, at this point, 10 years away from that initial act of Attack of the Clones. So just the setup it takes for some of this stuff that Sidious and had planned is, he's one of the greatest, I guess, like chess players ever. He's getting all his pieces in place. But that ends the Dooku arc, and I really love this, and I'd love to see more of this. If you're going to give me more Tales of the Jedi, do another Dooku episode. You don't have to do 3 of them, but do another Dooku one. And also, let's branch out of some of these time periods too. I think would be great, because Tales of the Jedi is like an old comic book that really focused on like thousands of years ago, and you can use this with it just being Tales of the Jedi. It can be any time period. Just give us more stuff like this. Give us a Knights of the Old Republic episode. Give us more than 6. Give us like a 10 episode thing, and maybe you can have like one off and then 3 sets of 3 arcs or something. I don't know. But let's talk about the last 2. So the last 2, we have Anakin putting Ahsoka through a very rigorous training exercise. That is Practice Makes Perfect, directed by Saul Ruiz, written by Dave Filoni. Of course, October 26th of 2022 is when that premiered. And this is a good episode. I've seen some people saying this is like perfect, a masterful episode. It's good. It hits better, I feel like, when you know what that last scene is, right? If you're somebody that watched this without watching the end of the Clone Wars, you're like, okay, right? She learned that. Great. I think you can infer that, okay, this is during Order 66, but what happens in that room, and that move that she learns while she's taking down the circle of troopers in this training exercise she's going to do in Season 7 during this arc. So it is something that helped her. This is something that will end up saving her life, which ironically at this point, Anakin probably doesn't want to save her life during Order 66. So it's just something that's kind of funny how he was preparing her this whole time for it, but probably the only time he doesn't want her to actually do this is when he's already fallen to the dark side and all the Jedi are being hunted. But yeah, so she goes through this, exercise where Anakin's just saying, again, like, you have to do this again. You have to do this again because you keep failing and I'm going to be hard. It's putting the guns to stun so that way she doesn't end up dead. But, she gets knocked out for an hour or 2 and then keeps getting up easier each time. Okay, and then we had Resolve, which was directed by Saul Ruiz, written by Dave Filoni, also on October 26, 2022. After Padme Amidala's death, Ahsoka goes into hiding and becomes a farmer. I love the opening of this episode, too, where they are at the funeral for Padme, and that we saw that Ahsoka showed up for that. And Bail Organa even recognized her and said, "You can't be here, man. You have to go." And he does give her a comlink in case if she ever needs help. And that's the whole reason they show this scene, right? Is because she's going to need that help later on, and she calls him for help. But this was another good one. I really enjoyed this one. I know some people are saying this doesn't really fit all too well with the Ahsoka novel. What I'll say with that is that Dave Filoni is the one that gave the outline to the person that wrote the novel. So, I mean, he's finally able to tell his story. He's been wanting to tell this story, so I'm glad he got to finish what he wanted to here. Yeah, probably some characters that should have been included in this. You know, we have people talking about, well, you know, it removed a person of color character, and it removed a LGBTQ character from the story. And yeah, that is, I can understand why people would be upset with that. I totally get it. In a way that I can understand, you know, but it's something that I don't think was malice from him. I really think he was just working off of the original outline he provided, and to be honest, he probably hasn't read these books. And I get that there's some sort of contention with that of, okay, but you said this time all of the books are going to be canon and everything. We've had a little bit of stuff being canon and not canon at times with the way that this has been, I guess, handled at this time. It started off great with people being able to know, okay, this is canon, and then, but you have to know some of this stuff is going to get overwritten at times because it is really tough to keep a lot of this stuff straight. These writers don't have the time to read every piece of work, especially Dave, who's working on live action and he's working on animation, all this stuff. But I'm sure he didn't mean to do this. So, like, I'm going to remove 2 characters that were representative of minorities and stuff like that. I think he was just telling a story he may have originally had in his mind at the time, and he may not have even read Ahsoka. I know people say, well, he had to approve it or whatever. Again, a lot of times that's just, okay, the writer sends him something saying, I'm going to use this, and he's like, fine, okay, right? Like, I got the okay on it. I think really his only involvement was probably just sending the outline saying, just stay within that parameters and you're good. But yes, this episode was good too. We had a nice Inquisitor come down, and he looked badass. He's going to get beat pretty easy, but he looked pretty cool. But yeah, not too much to say about that. You know, she is going to call Bail to help, I guess, bail them out of this situation. Pun intended. And, you know, she's going to kind of, I'm assuming this is when she sort of starts joining as Fulcrum, maybe. Because, you know, he's like, hey, we can use somebody like you. And she kind of dances around that a bit. Says she's ready to, I guess, join the fight. So she wasn't ready at Padme's funeral, but she's ready now. So that's Tales of the Jedi. So again, give me more of this. Give me more Tales of the Jedi. Give me more different time periods going forward. I think would be really great. If you can give me, like I said, Knights of the Old Republic, High Republic era, future, you know, past the sequel trilogy. Give me the you know, stuff in the build up to the sequel trilogy. Give me any sort of arc with any sort of Jedi in any time frame, and I'll be good. More before episode 1. Great. I love that time period. I really do love, I love Phantom Menace, for people that don't know. If this is your first episode listening to me, I'm a big fan of all Star Wars, really. But the prequels, you know, I grew up with them, so they have a soft spot in my heart. And I used to read all those novels of, like, was it the Jude Watson Jedi Apprentice series, which was about Obi-Wan being trained by Qui-Gon. That was pre-episode 1, and I love reading anything that's like pre-episode 1 and getting the state of the galaxy at a time when the Jedi were well respected. They weren't in a war at that time. What kind of missions are they going on? We got to see that with Dooku. All right, well, a Jedi died. We have to go see what calls that. Oh, we have, a senator kid get kidnapped. We're going to send the Jedi out. Like, seeing what type of missions they were sent on for peacekeepers. Because that's what they were, right? Give me more of that stuff. I really love seeing those peacekeeper missions and stuff. But yeah, so give me more Tales of the Jedi. That was all good. And now let's talk about this Damon Lindelof film. So this came out of like nowhere. I guess this was a few days ago. October 23rd. Sunday. This comes out late at night. This was 8:25, I think, Pacific time, and 11:25 Pacific, I think. It was late. I remember I was scrolling my phone during like Sunday Night Football, just scrolling and being like, whoa, this article just came out. Like, why is this dropping so late? This was an exclusive from Deadline. They said, following months of speculation, Deadline is now hearing from several sources close to the project that not only is Damon Lindelof developing a new Star Wars film, but that Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy has been set as the director. Now, she has directed a few episodes of Ms. Marvel. Lindelof is co-writing the project, though it is unknown at this time who his writing partner may be. We'll get to that. Insiders say the script is still being written, which means production is likely far out. That said, sources add it is important to Lucasfilm and Lindelof that a director be brought on so that a person's own vision of where they see the story is headed gets included in the script. As for what the film is focused on, that will remain under wraps as this project remains one of the more guarded secrets in all of Hollywood. As for when we will see this film, it's still a ways off. So at this point, they had no idea what it was about. The next day, so this is by Justin Kroll of Deadline. The next day, the 24th, I don't know if this was another late night one. No, this is like 4:28, so probably like 7:30 my time. By Boris Kitt here, okay, for Hollywood Reporter. Headline, A Secret Writer's Room, A Rising Scribe, and a Post-Skywalker Timeline. A look inside Damon Lindelof's Star Wars movie. Exclusive. So now they have an exclusive. And this is their article here. The secret Star Wars movie project that is being led creatively by Damon Lindelof was thrust into the open Sunday night when it was revealed that Sharmeen Obaid Chinoy, who directed 2 episodes of Ms. Marvel, was on board as a helmer. The project has been in work for months, and while Lindelof is getting the Wookiee-sized share of the attention, thanks to no small part of pedigree that includes co-creating TV sensation Lost, shepherding the acclaimed HBO series Watchmen, he is by no means the only person involved in the project. So this is interesting, right? In fact, if Lost and Watchmen, and as well as The Leftovers, another beloved series Lindelof created, have shown anything, it is that one of the writer's chief talents is picking gifted collaborators. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that Lindelof is writing the new Star Wars script with Justin Britt Gibson, a young and rising writer who worked as an exclusive story editor on Guillermo del Toro's vampire drama The Strain, and wrote episodes of Star's The Counterpart, a series that deals with parallel dimensions and starred J.K. Simmons. I've never heard of that show, but it sounds interesting. I love parallel dimensions. Okay. Britt Gibson, however, comes to the job after a secret writer's room that began coming together after this year's Star Wars celebration. The room held a 2-week session in July, and at the table were Patrick Somerville, who worked with Lindelof on Leftovers, and then went on to create the buzzy Station 11, Raina McClendon, a consulting producer on Lucasfilm's own Obi-Wan Kenobi and a writer of the company's upcoming Willow series, and Andy Greenwald, the creator of the 2019 Rosario Dawson crime drama Briar Patch, on which McClendon was also a story editor, among a couple of other writers. Dave Filoni, a protege of George Lucas, may have been present. After breaking the story, Lindelof and Britt Gibson have been clacking away at the keyboard, so it sounds like they're making progress on the script. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Sources say the movie project is intended as a standalone, but in success could lead to more movies. That plan goes against the grain of earlier Lucasfilm development processes, which saw the company try to come up with new trilogies. Now the studio seems to focus on standalones. And sources say the story would take place after the events of 2019 Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, although it would not be a continuation of the Skywalker saga. It could, however, feature some of the characters from the Star Wars trilogy made in the 2010s. Disney released a Star Wars feature each year from 2015 and 2019, blah, blah, blah. We know all that. Okay, as for when Lindelof's film could drop, December 2025 is the earliest date Disney has for a Star Wars feature. Now let's talk about Jeff Snyder. He used to write for one of these industry mags as well, and what he said on a podcast, which is called The Hot Mic, which is a podcast he has. He also dropped some Marvel info on there. He says, I do think it's going to happen. In fact, I think it actually has a release date. I'm like, wait, I have to keep track of what I'm allowed to say. I think it's going to come out December 2025. I've been saying that since I reported it. So I broke that story in March about Damon Lindelof. Which is interesting because I don't remember this. But yeah, about Damon Lindelof, followed it up this summer saying that he's been seen on the lot doing that kind of stuff. I didn't realize what I had originally reported. It was unclear whether this guy was going to be writing the script or leading a writer's room. I knew he was working on something up there. So it turns out he was leading a writer's room. In the end, Justin Gibson is going to be co-writing with Damon. And yeah, they have a director from Ms. Marvel. That's Obaid Chinoy. I think it's an interesting package. I think we'll see it Christmas 2025. Interesting. So that is what an insider says there, and he's not just a BSer, he is somebody that was in the business, he does have connections. So great, I just read you 2 articles and a snippet of a podcast. What do we think this means going forward for Star Wars? Well, I know some people have said, stop announcing stuff until you know that it's going to happen. And I agree with that for Lucasfilm. I do. This wasn't announced. This is scooped by the industry magazines, the trades. So, people saying, well, Lucasfilm's been announcing too much stuff without it getting done. I agree with that. They announced so many things that we have yet to see. The Taika Waititi Star Wars film. The Kevin Feige Star Wars film. And these things showed up on StarWars.com, so they were announced officially. Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron, which of course got pushed back because she's busy doing other stuff right now, and maybe a little bit of creative differences. I take it on good faith that they have not announced this one yet. Let it have. They have it as a date. Originally, they had one for this year too. Remember, this was supposed to be Rogue Squadron's here. That got pushed back due to COVID and I think and a whole bunch of other things. But I find it interesting on where we can go with this. Post Skywalker, post Rise, really like that. I like that. I really like we've just been talking about Tales of the Jedi. Give me any sort of new time frame. Show me what the state of the galaxy would be after the events of Rise of Skywalker. That's pretty cool. Who are we following here? Are we going to follow any sort of Force sensitives, or is this going to be more of a Solo-esque story? Are we going to have our smuggler? Are we going to have this stuff? Oh yeah, Rian Johnson trilogy, which we still haven't gotten. So take it with a grain of salt. I think it's probably a good chance of actually happening. They've had this date of December 2025, I think, for a little bit now, and they just reshuffled their dates with Avatar and stuff. I think over the summer is when that was, and at this time they were already working on this film. The fact that they're actually writing a script for it makes me feel good, because I don't think the Kevin Feige film has finished the script yet. I don't think the Taika Waititi film has finished the script. This is probably the closest thing we've gotten so far. I don't think Rogue Squadron had a script yet. before that got shelved. So I don't know. I feel pretty good that this might actually happen. Now, what would it be about? Again, I don't know. What characters appear? I'm thinking Poe Dameron might appear. I think you could get Rey. I don't know if they'll be main characters, but I think they can appear. Because I'm trying to think about who you can even else consider as sequel trilogy characters. You know, Finn, of course, Rose. But we lost Ben Solo. You know, we lost Ben. And then you had like some of the legacy characters and stuff. So I don't know. We lost Hux, right? So you're really looking at it like, okay, the characters that might appear are pretty limited, I think. But it would be pretty cool to see like, oh, here's Poe. They're going to have to do this with a fine line, I think. Because when it comes out in 2025, this will be amazing. All right, listen to this. When it comes out in 2025, if it features any of the sequel trilogy characters, it'll have been 6 years since Rise of Skywalker. And more scarily, it would be 10 years to the month that Force Awakens came out. Which was 10 years from when Rise of Skywalker... Revenge of the Sith came out. So why I'm saying that's amazing is while it still feels like a brand new trilogy, at that point that the movie comes out, we'd be like, 10 years ago, The Force Awakens came out. That's kind of terrifying when you look at age and how fast things are going. Because I felt like the gap from Revenge of the Sith to The Force Awakens felt huge. You know, that 10 years felt huge. That was me from like 8th grade to graduating college. That 10-year gap. While this 10-year gap is, all right, I got a new job, I started settling down, got married, got all this, you know, that gap between us, I've got married, got, you know, a house and all this kind of stuff. So those 10 years went by so much faster than the other 10 years. And part of it is just that as you grow up, right? Time is relative. It goes faster as you age for whatever reason that is. But yeah, kind of scary that it would be like, when this movie comes out, Force Awakens will be 10 years old. So, look, when they write this thing, if they get the script in a good spot and they start pre-production next year, they can start shooting by mid to late 2023. It usually takes a couple months to film a movie. Then you do all the post-work like all of 2024. And you actually have all the post-work for 2020. So, okay. This thing doesn't have to film next year. You'd love it if it did. But I think this thing could film late 2023 into 2024 or all of 2024, end of 2024, and they could still get this thing ready for December of 2025. This isn't a May release, so they really can take their time on the script, make sure it's right, get the people they need, start pre-production, because they're going to have to start pre-production, which is making the sets, making the creatures, making the props, all that kind of stuff that they'll be able to use in this film and stuff. Get the sound stages, start putting sets, and then start filming sometime in 2024 or late 2023, and then you have all that time for post-production to get it ready for December of 2025. I feel more confident about this film than any of the ones that have been announced as happening. And I think part of it is because they haven't announced it. I think they learned their lesson, is my main point here. I think they learned the lesson I've been clamoring for since we talked about Celebration and all that kind of stuff, is that don't announce stuff until it's ready. this day may not get announced until we start hearing of it ramping up the film, of it booking cast members. They may not announce it until then. And that's good. We don't need to officially announce it. We don't need to know what it is right now. Just the fact that this is chugging along and that the industry knows this is happening and that they're able to leak information to us enough that we're able to say, okay, we can speculate that this is post-Rise of Skywalker. That's great. We can speculate. Well, we can speculate some sequel characters will appear. Great. I don't need a StarWars.com article telling me this is happening. I don't need a StarWars.com article telling me what it's about yet. Let them work. If this falls apart, fine. It wasn't ever officially announced. But just keep it moving, please. We need a Star Wars film. 2025 is perfect for it. Again, 10 years from Force Awakens. So please, let's get this rolling. And at that point, it'll have been 6 years since Rise of Skywalker. 6 years since the last Star Wars film in theaters. It's time. It's time for us to get another one working. You don't have to rush it for 2023 or 2024. Just take your time and get it ready for 2025. If it's successful, great. We can take another 3-year gap, make a sequel. Or maybe the Feige or Waititi films are done and ready to go. But yeah, that about wraps up our episode here. Just if you want to share your thoughts on what you think this movie can be or what characters you want to see from the sequel trilogy in it, you can follow me on Twitter at PodAwakens. So you can reach us there, facebook.com/PodAwakens, or you can email us podawakens@gmail.com. You can also hit up our Instagram there at PodAwakens. And will be what I'm also doing lately as well over on my YouTube channel of Youngster Jordan, where I stream video games. I've been doing a Dark Side Knights of the Old Republic run on there, so that's been fun. I started that last year, had to take a break. I've been really making good progress this year in it, so I'm having a blast playing Knights of the Old Republic again, and doing my full Dark Side run. Also, if you go to the Pod Awakens YouTube page, you'll find a playlist with all of the episodes of the playthrough there. But yeah, so reach out to us there. Share us your thoughts on what you think this could be or what you're looking forward to. What Tales of the Jedi episode you would want for a possible season 2. But I think Star Wars is getting into a better spot every day. We have Andor, which is like prestige television Star Wars. We have Mandalorian coming back next year sometime. We have, we just ended up with Obi-Wan not that long ago. We have Bad Batch coming back. Just had Tales of the Jedi. We have Skeleton Crew filming. We have, Ahsoka series just ramped. We have all this stuff that's in the works that even if we don't get a movie until 2025, we have a lot to keep us occupied in the meantime. But I hope everyone has a great rest of their week. And look, going forward, like I said, in a couple weeks when Andor is over, I'm going to be doing a full recap of that. So that's probably the next episode that you're going to get in the feed. But yeah, so I hope everyone's enjoying Andor the way I am. And I'll catch you all next time when we talk Andor episodes 1 through 12.
I have spoken.
It's over, Anakin!